So my name is Althea, and I work with the Privacy and Scaling Explorations team at the Ethereum Foundation. We mostly work with applications of zero-knowledge proofs. I work with some really amazing developers and researchers and designers there. I lead communications, which means that I think a lot about how we tell people about what we do and why and what they might want to do about it. But we're not actually going to talk about words all that much today. We're mostly going to just look at a lot of pictures. Visual language is just really powerful for getting people to this mental place where they can kind of form new concepts more easily. It's immersive. It takes us out of our immediate surroundings, and it lets us sort of transcend logic and create and build on associations where words might not do the job. So I've been looking at privacy visuals in this sort of art interpretation lens, looking for patterns in how we visualize privacy, modes and themes and symbols and imagery that emerges when we try to make something like art about it. But before we start talking about visual language, I think it actually is important to touch on the word and the concept of privacy. Because it means different things to different people, right? It means something different and kind of more nuanced to the people in this room than just the average person who doesn't spend all of their time thinking about it. And this is important because these widely accepted sort of definitions, those are in people's heads, whether or not they're open to some other interpretation. It's just how language works. You don't get to start from scratch. We form concepts, and then we build on them. We make connections between them. So there's definitely a strong association with privacy and like separateness, secrecy, hiding. I think some of these synonyms are a little bit extreme. Ghettoization, incarceration. And I think it's kind of fascinating also that like society and companionship are presented as antonyms, as if privacy and society are just literally incompatible with each other. I also thought this vocabulary quiz was kind of a fun moment for me because I saw this and obviously the answer is supposed to be C, but I kind of thought like B, it's not a synonym, but that kind of lets me think that I'm just thinking about privacy in a different way than, you know, the common denominator. So obviously this is a more simplistic definition than most of us are working with, but I think it's still important to start from. Because this is actually what's evoked by a lot of the things that people encounter around privacy on a regular basis. So what does privacy look like? Like, what's the lowest common denominator in visual terms? If I'm just some guy, I've heard privacy is the hot new thing, and I go Google it to try to see what it's all about, what am I going to see? So I literally did that. I just Googled privacy and various privacy-related terms, just looking for those themes, the images that come up, what people are thinking about when they're thinking about privacy, like what they're seeing when they're thinking about privacy. And there were a few things that emerged that I thought were worth taking note of. There are so many variations of person staring at their phone while also being stared at. It shows people alone, they're like tethered to their devices, they're tethered by their devices. The space around them is like blurry, or it's abstract, or it's just blank. And maybe they look kind of scared, maybe they look defiant, maybe they're having a great time, maybe they're just checked out, but either way, it's just you and your phone and like whoever's watching. And here, our identities are just dissolved into bits and points of light and lines and numbers and symbols, and they drift around and gizmos and circuits and formless space, just like you are data. You just plug in and become one with the cloud, right? And here we regress a little bit, and we borrow from the aesthetics of cartoons and comic books and children's books. There's like detached body parts floating around. There's anthropomorphized machines. They're like threatening figures, but like this guy is about to blow up a nuclear power plant, but it's so goofy and like dreamlike. You're obviously not supposed to take it seriously, right? And sometimes it's just infantilizing. Sometimes it's a little more knowing, like dystopia. What are you going to do? But either way, you're too small, you're too stupid to really understand, so just leave it to the grown-ups. So coming back to the idea of kind of immersion, where am I in all of this? And the way I see it, like, I am data personified or possibly person datafied, but I am my bank account. I am the car I drive. I am online, which is this other kind of incomprehensible space. It's separate from real life. It's populated by literal cartoon villains who want to use their super sophisticated technology to find out all my secrets. But, like, nobody cares about your secrets, really. This is about control, right? It's about controlling narratives and behavior. It's controlling what you buy and what you believe. And if you want to control somebody, creating an environment where they're isolated and disorganized and fearful of some hallucinatory other is a pretty good place to start. So this quote is maybe a little dramatic. It's kind of meant to be. If psychology is more your jam, you could think about external locus of control. But when people feel powerless, they look for somebody to tell them what to do. And it's also a great diversion. It's offering up these threat archetypes and sort of packaged, deceptively simple solutions that keep you from thinking about what's really going on, like what we're really giving away, what's really happening to our lives and our world while we're scrabbling after these precious scraps of our existence. Because even that online-offline dichotomy is false, right? Like, as more of our lives move online and more tangible realms and physical spaces kind of come alive with technology that observes us and manipulates and evaluates and rewards and punishes us. So the boundaries between the real world and the online world are getting very blurry. It's gotten very hard to draw any kind of boundary around who and where we are anymore. So I think when we're talking about privacy in this room, what we're really talking about is something more like agency. And I like this etymology, this concept of things that are personal and belonging to oneself and not to the state, because I think it starts to get at something more essential, this possession of self. It's not about separation, it's about wanting to be more than a collection of data points that, like, mysterious entities fight over. I think people want to be seen, but not by everyone all the time. So it's about the ability to set and shift those boundaries and, like, express ourselves naturally in contexts that we choose, and separate past from present from future, and separate who we are from what's expected of us, and make connections that actually mean something, and define and redefine ourselves throughout our lives, and leave space for things that don't really need to be defined. So in that way, privacy is not really an end in itself. Like, privacy is not the goal. It's a condition that's necessary for the agency that lets us express ourselves as individuals in all of the ways that we do. So what does that look like? And here I dove a lot deeper, looking at websites and logos and social media and blog posts, where people are just trying to talk to anyone who will listen, and trying to develop some visual language for these kind of intangible concepts of freedom and choice and safety and sovereignty and, like, being a person. It's a little all over the place, and I wouldn't say that it's coalesced into anything I would describe as an art movement. But again, I think there are themes that are worth taking note of. And before anybody in here is like, I know that logo, that project is a scam. Maybe it is, I don't know. What I'm interested in is whether people are, like, attempting a new visual language around a more complicated definition of the idea of privacy. Whether they're doing it honestly is out of scope for this 10 minutes. So again, I keep kind of coming back to this question of where am I and who am I and what can I do? So here I'm in disguise. And this is kind of on the theme of hiding, but it has more of a sense of the individual. There's an expressiveness to it. There's a creativity. Maybe I'm at a costume ball. So it feels a little bit more like like I'm in there somewhere. There's more kind of an active element. Or maybe I'm a rebel. We have pirates and heroes and anti-heroes, implements of war. And you see the hacker archetype here a lot, but it's someone to emulate. It's not someone to fear, unless you're the man. It's like an adversarial environment. I recognize that, but I'm not helpless. Maybe I'm at war. I assume I'm on the right side, but I'm fighting, and I'm not just waiting to see who wins and hope I'm allowed to exist when it's all over. I'm in darkness. Everything from actual pictures of night to imagery and forms and colors that evoke nighttime and the night sky. This, to me, doesn't feel like hiding in the shadows. Like, there's an intimacy in darkness and this sense of being in touch with something that's mysterious and special and close. Like, in darkness, you can only see or be seen by the people who are right in front of you. So here, I'm a dot in a matrix again. But this time I feel like the emphasis is on the connections. I don't just sort of plug in and dissipate. I am connected, but I'm also contained. And maybe I'm in the 90s. I feel like for a lot of us, there's a sense of nostalgia for when the internet was like a little bit dumber. And it felt like something that you could make and you could change, and it stayed where you put it. And it didn't bombard you with widgets and modals and doodles when all you wanted was information. Like, you're a grown-up, just read the words. And meanwhile, not in your parents' basement, we love birds, you guys, and it makes sense. They represent so much. They are free and they're fierce, but they're also really fragile and they're codependent. And whether it's birds or bunnies or flowers or whatever, animals and plants, they don't need to be told what to do or what to be. They just are. So I think nature symbolizes like freedom and also this kind of essence. It's almost the opposite of the rebel aesthetic. Like, there's this longing to just exist. And full disclosure, I think this is probably where I land. Like, I don't want to fight about it. I just want to be. Or maybe I'm a wizard. Or I'm a god, but I have the power of the universe at my fingertips. And this is particularly prevalent when we talk about zero-knowledge proofs, I think. When we start looking at the core of what makes all of this go, just like math and physics and electricity. And there's this sense of those things as like elemental powers, but they're powers that I can summon. They don't belong to someone else. And similarly, in space, we are explorers, we're intrepid, we are in touch with the infinite, and we're in a place that is so vast that no one could ever possibly own it. And I could go on for a long time, but 10-ish minutes. So, to me, agency really means the ability to choose what to move toward and not what to hide from, right? To act and not just to react. But to be in that mode, you have to start from some kind of sense of safety. Otherwise, you're just constantly responding to danger. So far we've been looking at kind of contained elements, moods and modes and personas that suggest how that could be achieved, but not really integrated into an immersive world. That part is really hard, and just respect for everyone who tries it. But when we try, the immediacy of that can be really powerful. So what does it look like when we try to imagine a whole world where safety is inherent? It might look like a world where we fight for safety and we win, or something like it, or close enough. It's maybe a world where, and a version of ourselves, where powerful forces seek to control us, but we can summon powers that they can't comprehend. Or maybe we just fast forward through that part, And we imagine a world where like the battle is over, maybe it's in the future, maybe it's on another planet, but nature and technology have come to some sort of agreement, and everything is perfect and beautiful and free, or maybe it's beautiful and free and it's chaos. But we know that part of that beautiful freeness is the ability to be freely ourselves, even if we haven't necessarily figured out what that means yet. Or we can try to stay like here and now and try to find a way of looking at this world that encompasses the whole reality. It looks for some sort of harmony between natural and artificial, between threat and possibility, and it keeps us grounded in where we are and what we are, which is both small and infinite. So I didn't necessarily set up to reach a conclusion. This is also supposed to be an introduction to a panel, so that would be rude. But if I was going to have one, I think it would be that we're kind of caught between worlds right now. Like, we can't decide whether we're trying to arm ourselves for a fight in a world that doesn't belong to us and never will, or create safe spaces and figure out how to protect ourselves when we have to venture out, or just create something totally separate and new. But I don't think we need to answer that right now, and the answer is going to probably be different from everyone in this room anyway, right? But what I do think we need to think about is how we invite people with the worlds that we create to take ownership of themselves. So where do they belong in the worlds that we invite them into? Who are they and what can they do? Like, how can we help them feel curious and creative and complete, whether that's in this world or some collective hallucination? If we really believe that we're creating tools that will give people agency, and I think that we mostly do, then how do we show people things that help them believe that? So thank you for going on this little journey with me. This isn't how I expected to use my art degree, but I had really a lot of fun with this. If you are curious about what my team does, here are some links. Check it out and come hang with us.